Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You can put your hand down and be seated. The stationary microphone that is affixed to the desk is your microphone. I know there's two microphones on the right near you, but that is yours. Please speak into the microphone, state your full name, and spell your last name.
Paul Gold, G-O-L-D.
Can you scoot up just a little bit more?
Sure.
So that we can hear you?
Paul Gold, G-O-L-D.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, Mr. Gold.
Good afternoon.
Just as an initial matter, were you subpoenaed to be here today by the defense?
I was.
Okay. If you will, just tell the jury where you lived from 2008 to 2011.
I lived next door to the defendant, Nikolas Cruz,
Okay.
in Parkland.
Okay. And that was at Northwest 80th Terrace, is that right?
That is correct.
All right. And where did you live in relation to Nick?
I was his next door neighbor.
All right. And when you were living there, he was living with who?
He was living with his mother, and he was living with Zachary Cruz.
Okay. And that's, as far as you know, that's Zachary, his brother, is that right?
That is correct.
All right. And how was it that you came to live next door to the Cruz family?
I moved in with my fiancée, Roxanne Deschamps, and she had rented the house next to the Cruzes.
Okay. And so did she live there before you moved in with her?
She did.
Okay. And who else lived in that house with you and Roxanne?
I lived with my daughter, Isabella Gold, and we also lived with her son.
And when you say her son, are you talking about Roxanne's son?
Yeah, Rock Deschamps.
Rock Deschamps?
Yes.
Okay. And so if you moved in 2008, I don't know if you know or not, Nick was born in 1998. So is he about 9 years old when you move in? Does that sound right?
That sounds about right.
Okay. I'm just going to show you what's already been entered into evidence as Defense Exhibit 26. And just tell if you, does that come up on the screen there in front of you?
It does.
Does that look like Nick around the time that you moved in?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now, when you moved into Roxanne's house, did Roxanne and Linda Cruz, Nick's mother, did they already have a relationship?
Yes, they were friends.
Okay. And what types of things did they do together, at least that you observed?
They would just visit each other's homes, mostly Roxanne going to Linda Cruz's home.
Okay. And we're going to get into some specific memories that you have, but I'd just sort of like to speak to you first generally about that time. You from 2008 to 2011, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So when you moved in, do you remember your first interaction with Nikolas?
Yeah, pretty vividly, actually. Both the Cruz boys came over, Nikolas and Zachary Cruz. They came over to play with my daughter and a few other kids in the neighborhood. We had a pool table, and we set up the pool table for the kids, and I actually broke, and I hit it kind of hard, and it made a loud banging noise when we were playing pool. And as soon as I had hit the ball, Nikolas just kind of freaked out a little bit and went and sat on our couch and started holding his ears and kind of putting his head up and down in a very strange way.
Okay. Did he make any noise while he was doing this?
No, he just held his ears and just kind of rocked back and forth, and he may have screamed a little bit.
Okay. And from your observations, this was in response to the pool balls?
Yeah, it seemed like the loud noise had really startled him a lot more than was normal, and he was just putting his head up and down and kind of screaming a little bit, and It was very concerning. I spoke to his mother about it and told her that I felt that, there was something, that they should look into. There was, something not right with him.
All right. What were your impressions, initial impressions at least, of Nick's mother, Linda Cruz, when you first started getting to know her?
She seemed nice enough. She seemed like a struggling mother who didn't have very much money. She seemed like she was doing, the best that she could to raise two, very rambunctious children.
Okay.
She had, told me that they were her biological children.
Okay. And in terms of her telling you that Nick and Zach were her biological children, was that something that struck you as odd?
It struck me as odd, and it also struck Roxanne as odd. We discussed it because Zachary was just so much darker than Nikolas was, and he just looked so different than, Nikolas did, that we thought it couldn't possibly be a biological child of hers.
Okay. Other than Roxanne, were you aware of, did Linda have a group of friends that she spent time with?
She seemed to have very few friends and very few visitors.
Okay. Did you ever know her husband, Roger Cruz?
No, he passed away before I moved in.
Yes, sir. Okay. Did you ever know her to date anybody during the time that you knew her?
No.
What were your initial impressions of the relationship between Nikolas and Zach?
It was a little antagonistic. They would fight like brothers. Zachary was, although he was the younger brother, he was a bit stronger than Nikolas, stronger and bigger. And he seemed to pick on him at times. They seemed to play a lot of violent video games, and Zachary had lots of friends. Nikolas did not.
Okay. In terms of, and again, we're just talking about your perceptions, but did you perceive that Mrs. Cruz, Linda, that she favored one of the boys over the other?
She seemed to favor Nikolas a little bit because he was the the smaller and the weaker child, and seemed to have some developmental issues and problems socializing with other children.
Okay. Did she seem protective of him?
She did.
Sorry about that. Can you tell us a little bit about the Cruz home? The outside and the inside?
The outside looked very much like any other home in an affluent neighborhood. The inside was very neat. It was very well kept, and it was extremely warm inside. As she kept the heat, she kept the AC at maybe 79 or 80, which was a little bit uncomfortable. I also noticed that there was a lack of food in the house. The refrigerators were typically empty. The cupboards, when I saw the kids, going in them, they were typically empty. So we would, we realized that, but we came to the assumption that she didn't have any money and she was really, really struggling. So we would bring some groceries, an extra bag or two when we would go shopping just to help the family out.
Okay. And how frequently do you think you did that during the approximately 2.5 to 3 years you lived there?
Hard to say a number, but we would just bring one extra bag when we went. Sometimes we didn't do it every time, but when we could, we did.
Was that something that Linda Cruz specifically asked you to do?
We just volunteered because it seemed like there was not enough food in the refrigerator. She also started padlocking the refrigerator, which was kind of weird because she said the kids would raid the refrigerator and eat everything, even though everything really wasn't that much.
Okay. But in your memories, that she never actually said to you, Paul, can you please get me some food? That conversation didn't happen, is that right?
No, she never asked for it.
Okay. Do you remember the inside of the home? I assume you visited there, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember seeing any damage to the inside of the home?
There were walls that were punched, doors that were broken. Like I said before, the home was very neat, but there was some damage. Okay. Inside the bathrooms, had some damage to the walls. Some of the doors would be damaged. And, she would eventually repair it.
Okay. Now, may I approach Mr. Gold briefly?
You may.
Thank you. I'm going to show you Mr. Gold has been marked for ID as defense 5R and 5W. These are two photographs. And if you could just tell me, just yes or no, if you recognize these photos.
Yeah, I do. This is the Cruz's bathroom, and I did see those marks on the walls.
Okay. And so, are these pictures of the inside of the Cruz home?
Yes, they appear to be.
And do they represent the memories that you have about the inside of that home?
Yeah, they do.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd offer 5W and 5R.
Mr. Secor, can you see it again?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Thank you. State, do you have any objection to the court receiving what's been marked for identification as defense 5R and 5W?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
Okay, 5R will be received as defense 56, and 5W will be received as defense 57.
And Mr. Gold, did you have any idea during the time that you lived there when you saw the damage inside of the house, did you have any idea of how it happened?
Yes, it was one or the other boys. It was either Nikolas or Zachary who would punch the wall.
Okay. And is that something that you ever saw them actually doing, one of the boys?
I've seen them getting pretty crazy in the house at times.
Okay. Mr. Cole, I'm just going to, or may I publish these, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Mr. Gold, I'm just going to show you defense 56 and just ask you to describe what's depicted there in that image.
Could see the entrance to what I believe is the master bedroom, and a mirror which is broken.
Okay. And then I'm going to show you defense 57. And if you can describe to the jury what you see in that image that you remember from being there.
I believe that's the guest bathroom, and it's pretty apparent. You could see the kick marks, or I'm not even sure what somebody used to make those marks, but clearly somebody used an object or a fist or something to really damage the wall.
Okay. And did Linda attempt to fix those things in the home herself?
She would eventually fix them.
Okay. Now, during the time that you lived there, did you ever take Nikolas and Zach to do things with your family?
Yeah, on occasion, we would invite them to, go with us bowling or to the movies. We took them out on dirt bikes one time.
And was that just being neighborly, or was there a reason behind you doing it?
We felt bad for the children. They didn't have a father. They didn't have any money. It appeared like they were on a shoestring budget. They really didn't go out at all. They had some major problems in the home. So we felt it just kindness to do that.
And was that something that went on during the whole time that you lived there, that you would take them?
Yeah, sometimes we would bring them places.
Okay. Did Zach always come?
Usually both of the kids came.
Okay. Now, I know you said that Linda Cruz never actually asked you for groceries, but did she say things that indicated to you that she had financial problems?
Oh, constantly.
Okay. And can you describe to us what some of those were?
She would just tell us that she had shortcomings in the month, and she was $20 short, or this month was going to be a very difficult month because she had a couple of expenses that she hadn't anticipated having. And, she'd say she'd have to make some cutbacks, but she wouldn't say exactly with what, but, we pretty much assumed it was food.
You mentioned earlier, excuse me, that you found it, at least yourself, you found it warm inside the Cruz home.
Well, she unplugged every appliance in the home. It was really bizarre. She would unplug TVs that they didn't work because she said that they drew power. She would try to insulate everything. She would try to minimize her electrical output. I don't remember what she told me exactly it was, but it was as low as $75 a month. It was some ridiculously low number. So we really, really felt bad for her and the kids with, what she was going through financially.
Okay. And so, am I understanding you correctly that you felt like these were all cost-saving measures?
Well, she would say these were cost-saving measures, yeah.
All right, thank you. Did you see during the time that you lived there, when you would visit, did you see her drinking alcohol?
Yes, she drank quite a bit.
Okay. And when you saw her drinking, would she only be drinking at certain times of the day?
She didn't work, so when I would come over there, it was usually after work, or between 5 and 8 p.m. or even slightly later. I would go over with my then fiancée Roxanne. We would visit her, and it didn't seem out of the ordinary, but now that I'm looking back, she always did have a wine with her, and she was always drinking wine.
Okay. But at the time, she wasn't somebody that you thought was an alcoholic.
She she didn't appear to be intoxicated, but she was always drinking.
Yes, sir. You talked about Nick and Zach coming over shortly after you moved in, and the incident with the pool balls. Did Nick and Zach, did they develop friendships with Rock and with Isabella? Is that right?
Yes, that's my daughter.
Okay. Did they become friends?
Zachary would come over a lot more than Nikolas would. Nikolas kind of stayed to himself a lot more. But yes, Zachary would come over and he would play a lot of video games with Rocky.
And do you remember the types of games that they played?
They were all violent games. Whether it was, at our home, I noticed that they were always playing violent games when it was in the Cruz's residence also. Violent games.
Can you tell us a little bit about your perceptions of Nick's maturity when you were getting to know him? Did he seem like mature for his age?
No, he seemed like he had serious, developmental issues. He seemed a few years younger than he actually was, both physically and mentally.
Okay. And what types of things made you think that?
He just talk about things that kids his age really don't talk about. He would just be extremely immature, always very nice, and I noticed that he would also lose his temper pretty quickly, and just, out of nowhere, he would just snap. And it was like there was somebody else there. It was actually, my daughter described it as Nikolas, like he's a little off, a little crazy. And when this happened, we would all, know he was having a bit of an episode, or something in his mind was going on that just wasn't normal.
And when you say that your daughter had a name, she said
Nickname, yeah.
Nikolas?
Nikolas, yes, that's what she referred to him when he would have these episodes or go a little bit crazy.
Okay. Other than the breaking the pool balls, were there other things that you saw sort of trigger these episodes in Nick?
It was almost, I'd have to say they were almost spontaneous and out of nowhere when he would lose his temper. One time he took a golf club and smashed a small motorcycle trailer that I had, just out of nowhere. I don't remember exactly what caused him to be so angry, but I don't think it was anything. And after he did that, he came over and was, profusely apologetic. And that was kind of his routine. He would be very nice, very sociable, not sociable, but very, very pleasant to people. And, wanting to be nice to people. And then another moment when he would lose his temper, he would just break things and go off, it seemed out of his mind. And then when he calmed down, he was, you could see he really, really was apologetic. He did almost like it was another person that had done it. He's just, you could see that he was truly sorry for whatever it is that he broke or said or did. But he would do it again. It was...
So the incident with the trailer, do you remember, was there some event that happened that you think caused him to do that?
I honestly don't recall. So it really, I'm not sure that there even was an event.
Okay. Now, when things like this would happen, did Nikolas ever try to deny that he'd done these things?
No, never. He appeared more shocked at himself that he had done it.
You mentioned a little bit about this before, but I'd like you to tell us a little bit more, if you don't mind, about interactions that you saw between Nikolas and other kids in the neighborhood versus the interactions you saw between Zach and the kids in the neighborhood.
Unfortunately, I saw that he was a bit ostracized.
He was a bit what?
Ostracized by the other children. He would play with them a little bit, and then they seemed to isolate him, and I could see it was very frustrating for him. Zachary, on the other hand, was, a lot more social. He had a lot more friends. He went out. I would see him riding his bike with all the other children and just kind of getting along. And Nikolas was more isolated, and he spent more time by himself. He would walk around the neighborhoods alone many times and just, be by himself much of the time.
And from what you saw, did you feel like some of these episodes that he had were part of the reason that the other kids didn't want to be around him?
I wasn't there when he was interacting with the other kids in the neighborhood. I just noticed from afar that, he really wasn't welcome to hang out with them.
Okay. And one thing about when he would have the episodes, was it something that was scary to you to see?
I mean, it was a tantrum. He's a little kid. We weren't threatened in that sense, but it was just bizarre how angry he would become, and how volatile, and breaking whatever he could break. So it really was a very disconcerting to watch, and definitely not normal behavior for a child.
Did you ever see him have these sort of similar episodes when he was frustrated about not getting something that he wanted?
Yeah, he didn't like to hear no.
And so would it when he was frustrated about being told no, would the episodes be as you described?
They were always different, and I think it was for different reasons.
Okay.
Sometimes for no reason at all. I'm sure he had a reason, but I didn't see it.
Okay. Other behaviors that he exhibited, or did he have any other behaviors that you found unusual?
He would focus on one thing and just be consistently talking about a single object. For a little while, for maybe a year or so, he was obsessed with penguins. And, he had penguin books, and he'd talk about penguins, and kids would come over, and that's all he would talk about for a while. And, the other things like that, just becoming laser focused on one topic, and that's all that he would be thinking about for a while.
When you spoke to Nick, did you feel like he understood you?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you feel like he was wanting to have friends?
Absolutely.
And what are the things that made you feel like he wanted to have friends?
He tried to reach out to people. He tried to, be a part of people's lives, and he wanted to interact with people. It's just, he was, a little strange. He had some strange behaviors. Like I said before, he would, hold his ears and rock back and forth. Sometimes he would yell. He'd lose his temper. Kind of hard to be around somebody like that sometimes.
I think you mentioned that at some point you told Linda that you were worried.
I told her immediately when I met him.
Okay.
Like the first time I met him, I knew he needed some serious help. I knew that this kid was not right, psychologically, that he seemed to have developmental issues. He had lots of signs of kids that need to have some supervised help or some kind of psychological counseling or something.
Do you remember how Linda responded to that suggestion by you?
She was very mad. She was very angry. She said there's nothing wrong with her son. He's fine, and that was it. I didn't mention it again. It really was disconcerting for her.
In your experience, was Linda protective of Nikolas and Zachary?
She was.
Okay. And would you say from your perspective, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing?
It was too much. It was too much. She was a little overprotective, and I think she tried to shield them from the world. She didn't get the help that Nikolas needed for a long time, and then finally she started to get him some counseling, which was great.
Did you ever feel as though she was trying to cover for them?
Well, yeah, I mean, immediately, because she said they were both fine, and she told us that they were her biological kids, and, that they were, they didn't have any issues, but then sometimes when she had too much, she would just say the kids are out of control, she can't handle them.
Yes, sir. Did Linda ever tell you that she was afraid of Nikolas?
As she did sometimes. She told me that she was scared of him.
Did she ever tell you why?
She told me not to believe the, angelic appearance that he had, and his very nice ways, that, that he would turn and do bad things. And she was a little afraid of him at times.
Were you ever aware of him threatening her or doing anything to her?
Not firsthand, no, just from conjecture.
All right. And at some point, did you start noticing law enforcement arriving to the Cruz home?
Many times.
And did you know why that was happening?
Zachary, Nikolas's brother, would shoplift a lot. And we kind of assumed that's what was happening most of the time.
But you don't know absolutely.
Linda told us that Zachary had been stealing.
Okay. Did you ever see Nick interacting with the Cruz family dogs?
Yes, he loved the animals.
Okay. Now, you lived there until 2011, is that right?
That's correct.
And then where did you move to in 2011?
We moved to Lake Worth.
All right. And who moved with you?
Rocky, Roxanne's daughter, Vanessa Deschamps, moved back from Canada with us, and I had my daughter Isabella with us, and Roxanne Deschamps.
And how long did y'all live in Lake Worth?
I believe we lived there just for a short while, maybe a year and a half.
Okay. And during that period of time, did you still occasionally see the Cruz family?
I believe they came over one time to visit.
Okay. And if you only lived in Lake Worth for a year, where'd you move after Lake Worth?
After that, we bought a home in West Palm Beach.
All right. And do you still live there?
I do.
Okay. So if you moved there in 2012, how frequently are you seeing Nick and Zach and Linda?
They would just come over to visit infrequently.
Okay. And did you ever try to help them out when they came over to your house?
Yeah, we give them some odd jobs to do around the house and try to just be supportive of the family still.
Okay. Did you spend holidays together with them?
I believe they came over once around Christmas. We didn't spend the holiday. They just came, just for a visit.
Yes, sir. When you were living in West Palm, did you eventually have kind of a falling out with Linda?
I did. I did have a bit of a fight with her.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. She came over with Nikolas and Zachary I had one of my friends over the house. He had a very expensive iPad, and the iPad had disappeared while we were all going to Faith Farm, which is just, I guess it's I guess a kind of an outlet center that just sells used furniture. So we were just taking a drive there, and when we drove back, my friend told me that the iPad that had been in my car was missing. So I immediately called Linda and I told her, hey, I think Zachary took the iPad. Please don't let him out of your car. Please, search him, make sure we get the iPad back. And she didn't do that, and she said she looked, but there was no iPad. And it was a huge deal to my friend because he had all of his business information on there, not to mention that the iPad was expensive. And about a week and a half later, I was still calling Linda and just telling her, please, look for this. It's very important. My friend's very upset, and she said she found the case at her house. And she tried to tell me that she thinks he just took the case. And I said, that's impossible. Nobody's going to take just a case. He clearly took the whole iPad. And, and that was, I was really kind of miffed at her for, allowing this to happen when she knew that, I told her right away that this had happened. And it seemed like she really didn't care.
And is this an example of one of the times that you felt like she was unnecessarily covering for one of the boys?
Yeah, for sure.
So, do you know whether or not you ever spoke to Linda again after that?
No, I think that was the final time I spoke to her. I was really pretty mad at her.
Okay. Did you, after that falling out with Linda, did you still occasionally talk to Nick?
He would call on occasion, and when he was, living with Roxanne Deschamps after his mother passed away, and he was, living at the Deschamps residence, we spoke on the phone a few times. I just called to see how he was doing. Another time, I went to the funeral, so I picked him up, to bring him to the funeral because I understood he didn't have a ride to his mother's funeral. So I went over to Parkland and picked him up and brought him to his mother's funeral.
Okay. And yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, but real quickly before we get to the funeral, I want to talk to you about when Linda died in November 2017, okay? Were you and Roxanne Deschamps still together at that point?
No, we had broken up at that time.
Okay. And how did you find out that Linda had died?
I think Roxanne called me and told me that she had died.
Okay. And did you know where Nick and Zach were living after Linda died?
We were going through a difficult period at that point. Roxanne and I were fighting a lot, and it was not a good situation between us.
So you were living separately?
We were living separately. We were having a custody battle over my son, Tyler Gold. And, it was not an amicable situation between us.
Okay. Were you aware of the fact that after Linda died that Nick and Zach went to live with Roxanne?
Not right away. I found out about a month after they had moved in.
Okay. And your son Tyler was living with Roxanne at that point, is that correct?
Yes.
How did you feel about your young son Tyler living in a home with Nick and Zach?
When I found out about it, I was very unhappy about it because I felt it was not, they were a little older. I'd seen a lot of, what was going on, a lot of, the bullying that happened with Zachary bullying Nikolas and everything that was going on, Nikolas losing his temper, and, he's bigger. I didn't feel it was a safe environment for him.
Okay. Were you aware of the fact that Nick had guns at Roxanne's house?
No, I definitely didn't know about that.
Okay. You said that about the funeral that Nick didn't have a ride. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. And you said you went and picked him up?
I did. I drove to Parkland and brought him to his mother's funeral in Davie.
All right. Who was at Linda's funeral?
It was myself and Roxanne, Zachary Cruz, Nikolas Cruz, obviously I brought him, and we brought my daughter as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, that was it.
How did Nick react to nobody else coming to Linda's funeral?
Well, he asked me, he was very upset. He said, why is nobody here? And I told him that when we had made the publication in the newspaper for her death, we had put the wrong date, unfortunately. I was lying to him. But I could see that he was extremely distraught about that. I didn't know what to tell him.
Okay. And so, just be clear, what you told him was a lie?
Yeah.
Okay. Did Nick ever express to you after Linda died about the concerns that he had about her health before she died?
Yeah, he said that he believed that it was cigarettes and the alcohol that had killed her. Too much smoking and too much drinking.
And was smoking something that you also observed her doing during the time that you lived in Parkland?
A bit.
Was Nick in school when you took him to Linda's funeral? I mean, was he enrolled in school at that time?
I am not 100% sure if he was in school or not in school, but right after his mother passed away, I'm sure he was not attending school and that he had missed too many days and they wouldn't allow him back into the school.
Okay. May I approach Mr. Gold quickly?
You may.
Mr. Gold, I'm just going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes, Defense 5C and 5E, and just tell me if you recognize these photographs.
Yeah, I believe I took them.
Okay. And are these photographs of Nick and Zach?
They are.
And what event are they at?
That's during the funeral, and that's Linda's ashes that they're holding.
Okay. And you think you actually took these photographs?
I think I did.
Okay. Offering evidence 5E and 5C, please.
No objection.
Okay, without objections, the defense, 5C for identification will be received as 58. 5E for identification will be received as 59.
And we'll look at those in just a second, Mr. Gold, but when she died, when you were talking with him, you said you didn't know if he was in school. What about working? Did you know whether or not he was working?
Yeah, I think he had a job at the dollar store.
Okay.
Yeah, when he was with Roxanne, he had a job across the street working at the dollar store. And I believe he told me when he moved to Parkland, he was able to work at the dollar store as well.
Okay. Did you offer him additional work with you?
I did. I worked with a very nice, well, one of my foremans, I own a sports construction company, one of my foremans is a very nice guy, and I thought it would be good for him to be, around some good people who could teach him something and help him. And, we offered him a job, but, for some reason, he didn't take the job. I guess Roxanne I don't really know what happened, but he never did end up working for me.
Okay. But did you make efforts to actually try to go pick him up for work?
We did a few times, yes.
And he just didn't show up?
He didn't show up, unfortunately.
Okay. And did that bother you?
It just, you know, I felt that my foreman could have really helped him, and, you know, that he could have really, you know, kind of mentored him and been, you know, good influence on him, especially after his mother died. He was extremely distraught. So, you know, we tried 3 times, and then we said, you know what, if he, you know, when he's ready, he'll reach out to us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gold, I'm just going to show you, if I may I publish them?
You may.
Thank you. I'm going to show you Defense 59, if you could just describe to the jury this image.
Once again, that's Zachary and Nikolas Cruz holding his mother's urn.
Okay. And this is at the actual funeral?
That's correct.
Okay. And then I'll show you what has been entered as Defense 58. Ask you to describe that to the jury.
Once again, that's at Linda Cruz's funeral. That's Zachary Cruz and Nikolas Cruz holding their mother's urn, getting ready to place it next to Roger Cruz's body.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have you kept in touch with Nick since the murders that he committed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas?
He's called me a few times.
Why do you take those calls?
I wasn't going to ever speak to him again after the event happened. When I heard about the shooting, I called Nick to warn him that there was a shooter around and to be careful, because I heard there was, you know, a shooter right down the street. I didn't even realize, I couldn't even imagine that it was him. And then when I found out that it was in fact him, and that, you know, 17 children had died, I just started screaming. I didn't have, you know, I couldn't have been any more distraught and angry, and I had a million emotions going through me, and not one of them was good. And I never thought I would ever speak to him again. But as time went on, I thought about the whole situation, and I learned, you know, that his mother had used drugs while he was a baby. I had
Sustained.
It's okay. Well, just talk about what you actually knew yourself. You know, not what you learned after the fact, but you were obviously horrified by what he did, right?
Well, horrified, and I think, you know, going back, you know, Linda had told us that that the children were in fact adopted. Later on, we had found out about that. And just the fact that this young man just had been given everything that could have possibly gone wrong in a kid's life had just happened.
Sustained.
In terms of what you saw going on in the Cruz home, did you feel as though, of the 3 people that lived there, obviously Linda, Nick, and Zach, did you feel like the problems in the home were caused by one of the family members?
Objection. This is just opinion.
He can state his opinion about
What he observed, but you need to ask open-ended questions.
just about what you observed. Was there one problem in that home?
Well, I mean, both children were both problematic kids. Nikolas was, you know, being bullied by his brother. That happened a lot. It was also, I found it, you know, pretty problematic that they were always, you know, playing violent video games.
Okay. Did you know ever that Nick had guns?
No, not till after the incident had happened.
In terms of, I know you've already stated that you had some issues with Linda's parenting, but the Nick that you knew during the time that you lived next door, was he somebody that you think a person should have allowed to have a gun?
No weapons. I mean, he would lose his temper. He would lose his temper, easily, and really, would go off the reservation when he lost his temper. So no, he's not somebody that I would say should have any kind of weapon.
You have just a moment now.
You may.
Thank you. Just a couple more things, Mr. Gold. I appreciate your patience. During the episodes that you described that Nick would have, did you ever see him hitting himself?
Yes, many times.
Based on your knowledge, was there ever a time that Roxanne and Tyler, after your and Roxanne's relationship deteriorated, was there ever a time that Roxanne and Tyler lived with the Cruz family that you know of?
I wasn't aware that she had moved in with Linda Cruz, but she had gone there for a week to stay there when we were having a fight.
Okay. And during that period of time, did you know where your son was?
No, I didn't.
How old was he at that point?
He must have been 3 or 4.
Okay. And how long did you not know where he was?
He went missing for 2 months.
Did you, I'm sorry, were you ever aware during the time that you lived next door to the Cruzes that any of their dogs died?
Yes, I believe I was aware that one of the dogs had eaten a frog and had been poisoned.
Okay. Were you talking about like a cane toad or a boofer toad?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. How did Nick react to that, if you recall?
Very saddened by the situation.
Okay. And did he seem angry about the toads?
He went out on a killing spree on the toads. I do recall that, yes. He tried to kill every toad in the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. I appreciate it.
State whenever you're ready. Did you need to tell me something, sir?
No.
Okay. Okay. Sir, there's a water there for you also if you need it.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate that.
May it please the court. Good afternoon, Mr. Gold.
Good afternoon.
So you moved next door in 2008, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and you lived there about, you said 2011, correct?
About 3 years, yes.
And previously, you said 2010 or 2011?
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure if it was 10 or 11.
Okay, so about 2.5 years.
Yeah,
Correct.
2.5, 3 years.
All right, and then you moved to Lake Worth, and you were there about a year, correct?
That's correct.
And you testified earlier that the defendant came to your house in Lake Worth?
Yeah, I believe they came there one or two times, if I
Have you ever testified differently, that he never came to your house at Lake Worth?
I don't think so. I think he came there once or twice.
The question was, did you ever testify differently in deposition?
I'm not 100% sure if I said he was there or not there.
Mind if I show you page 32? Do you remember giving a deposition on January 19, 2022?
I do.
All right. And show you, counsel, page 32, lines 11 through 13. Would you like to read that?
Sure. You said 13 through...
11 through 13.
Oh, 11 through 13, sure. Okay, so for that 1 year that you lived in Lake Worth, you didn't see him. No, I don't believe he came there. Okay. And how about when you moved into Wilson? He came here twice.
Okay.
Yeah, I just trying to recall. It was a long time ago. I think he came there one time.
Okay, but in January, you said he didn't come to the Lake Worth house, but he came to the West Palm house twice.
Twice, yeah.
Two
I
times.
think I might have been incorrect. Going back to my memory, I think he went there one time. It's really not very relevant either way.
Okay. Very few times.
Very few times, yeah.
Okay. And one of those times was when they came over and you were going to pay Nick and Zach to do some chores at the house, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and the reason that you asked them to do chores is because this house was a foreclosure you bought, right?
that's correct.
And it needed some yard work.
It did. We were trying to find something for the boys to do, and I could use the help.
Okay, and that's fine. So, and there was a lot of work for the kids to do, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so this was probably around the time you bought the house in 2012, since it needed the yard work done.
It could have been a little after. There was really a lot of work to do in that home.
Okay, and so on this visit, the boys work, right?
They did a little bit of work, yes.
Okay, and so 2012, 2013 maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So 2013, Nick would be 14 or 15 years old, Zach would be 13 years old, right?
Sounds about right.
Okay. And you had them in your car with you, and that's where the iPad was, right?
Yes, I was driving them to Faith Farm
Okay.
to meet his mother.
Okay. And you took this opportunity to let them know that they should be better kids, right?
I was giving them a bit of a speech about stealing and about how, it really is wrong and how kids really shouldn't steal. And I was really centering that more to Zachary than Nikolas. I told both the kids. Nick really didn't steal very much. Zachary did steal a lot. So I was telling them, about the wrongs of stealing. They were both in the back seat at the time. And I was just giving them a speech about, being a good person, trying to do the right thing, not to
Be
steal.
good to your mother too, right?
Everything, just trying to,
Okay.
trying to get them to understand a little more.
So the answer is yes, you did give him a speech about not stealing, right?
Yeah, I did.
And it was really directed towards Zach.
Yes.
And you knew from his mother that Zach wasn't even allowed in a lot of stores in Parkland, right?
Well, I knew firsthand about many of the events of the shoplifting. I saw the police outside the house. Linda told me about a lot of the shoplifting that had happened.
Okay. So you find out that the iPad was at their house, and you had this conversation with Linda Cruz, correct?
Well, I had the conversation with Linda Cruz, and then she told me that she had, after maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, she had found the case.
And you were upset at both Zachary and Linda, correct?
I was.
Okay. And you lost a lot of respect for Linda as a result of that, didn't you?
I certainly did.
And you became distant with her, correct?
Yes.
And you think, or you thought, that Linda was a pathological liar, didn't you?
I didn't realize when
Can you answer yes or no?
That's a yes.
Okay. And you thought she would lie about even stupid things, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And one of those lies that you thought was a really big lie was the fact that she said she was the biological mother of the boys.
That was one of the biggest lies she's ever said.
Right. That was a terrible lie to you, that she was saying those were her natural born children, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you thought and talked about it that seemed very unlikely because of Zach's darker skin, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the other thing that you thought was a really big lie was her financial state. You thought, you learned later that she was a lot better off than she let on, right?
I did.
And that bothered you, and that was another lie that she had perpetuated, correct?
It infuriated me.
It infuriated you that she lied about her financial state?
She lied about her financial situation. I found out later she was okay. She had some money. She just chose not to spend any of it.
Okay. And so because of this iPad incident, you had this falling out with Linda, and you would no longer speak with Zach too, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And as a result of that, you never saw Linda Cruz again?
No.
Okay. Now, and is it fair to say that after you moved in approximately 2010 or 2011, that you never visited the Cruz home again, correct?
No, that's not correct. I don't remember when I went there, but I did visit shortly after the iPad was stolen to go there and ask her if she could please look around for the iPad. So yes, I did visit the Cruz residence to try to recover the iPad for my friend.
Do you remember giving a statement different than that at the same deposition on January 19th, 2022, when you were asked, after you moved from Parkland, page 50, lines 5 through 6, or 4 through 6, excuse me, lines 3 through 6. After you moved from Parkland, did you ever visit the Cruz home again? Answer, no, I did not.
I was incorrect when I said that.
Okay, so you think you've been there one more time?
Most certainly went there.
One time?
A single time, yes.
And that was to get the iPad?
To retrieve the iPad, yes.
Which you never retrieved?
We got the case.
Okay. And isn't it true that after you moved from Parkland, there were only 2 or 3 times after you moved from Parkland until you saw the defendant again at the funeral that you actually saw the defendant? So from 2010 or 11 through 2017, you saw him 2 or 3 times.
See, that sounds about right.
Okay. But you actually did speak to Linda one more time, didn't you?
Well,
I'll refresh your recollection.
I believe I called just to ask her if she knew where Roxanne was.
Exactly. You believe that Roxanne kidnapped your son, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And you already didn't like Linda Cruz or Zachary Cruz, and now Roxanne is staying with your arch enemy, Linda Cruz.
I wouldn't call her my arch enemy. I was, just angry at her for lying and angry at her because I felt she could have helped in this situation. She was anything but an arch enemy.
Okay, but you were mad at her because of an iPad, right?
I was disappointed in her.
Okay, to the point that you wouldn't talk to her anymore.
I chose not to speak to her anymore. I chose not to speak to her anymore, and I called her, to ask her for help, to help me find Roxanne, help me find my son.
And so you called the house and you wanted to know, where's Roxanne? My son disappeared, correct?
Well, no. My son was with Roxanne, so I was trying to find my son and Roxanne.
And after that, then there was no further conversations with Linda Cruz, correct?
I don't believe I spoke to her after that.
Okay. So regarding Roxanne Deschamps, is it fair to say that you had an on-off relationship with Roxanne?
We did.
Okay. And in case it wasn't clear on direct, you have a child with her, correct?
We do.
Okay. And at the time of Linda's death, November of 2017, you and her were not speaking to each other, correct?
Yeah, we had a few months that we were not talking to each other.
And that was a particularly bad time for you two, a lot of ill feelings between you, correct?
That is correct.
And the funeral, although the death was November 1st, the funeral wasn't until December, maybe December 2nd of 2017, correct?
That is right.
All right. And by that time, the defendant had already been kicked out of Roxanne's house, correct?
I believe that's right. Yeah, it is.
Have a sidebar. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Gold, you were asked in direct examination about the golf club incident, correct?
Yes,
And was that when you were living next door?
that's correct.
Okay, and you had a trailer for your motorcycle, you said, and didn't you testify that all of a sudden he started beating your trailer with a golf club for no reason?
Yeah, I don't recall what set him off.
Do you remember giving a different answer to that question?
No, I don't.
Do you remember in the deposition that I've already cited to you only in January of this year, January 19th, you said he did something and I complained about it. Do you remember saying those words?
Honestly, I seem to have forgotten that.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I forgot that. I forgot exactly what happened. I'm trying to recall it.
And do you remember also saying, I think he was a little angry at me?
I mean, clearly he was angry at me, if he was beating the trailer, obviously, yes.
Well, he wasn't just walking down the street and grabbed a golf club and started beating your trailer, did he?
No, I just forgot exactly what led up to it.
So but that's not what you said on direct examination. You said he didn't do anything and he just started beating the trailer, but that's not true, is it?
I didn't recall what he did or what happened exactly to set him off. I think those were my exact words.
So the truth of the matter is, you said no to him about something or told him he shouldn't be doing what he's doing, and he got mad and he started beating the trailer, right?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so it wasn't out of the blue, correct?
The beating of the trailer was out of the blue, and that's what I meant. When he was beating the trailer, he left, and then he beat the trailer. I didn't say that nothing happened at all. I said he left, and then out of the blue, he beat the trailer.
So let me go back to Roxanne now, and during the time that the defendant has left Roxanne's and is living with the Sneeds, correct?
Okay, yes.
And there's some contact now, at least by text, with you and the defendant, or there was some contact with you when you were taking him home, or back to the Sneed's house after the funeral, correct?
Could you repeat the
After the
question?
funeral, did you take him back to the Sneed's house?
Yes, I dropped him off.
Okay. And actually, you picked him up from the Sneed's house, correct?
That is correct.
And actually, he told you that that he was happy at the Sneed's house. He was happy with the Sneeds, he was fine, correct?
Yeah, he said he was okay.
And that he was working at the Dollar Tree, correct?
That's correct.
But the defendant started complaining to you about Roxanne, correct?
He was a little pissed off at her, yes.
Well, and so you ever heard the expression, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? You ever hear that expression?
I have.
Okay, so Roxanne's your enemy, right?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but then she was, wasn't she?
We were both angry at each other.
Okay. In fact, you were so angry with her that you offered to hire an attorney to sue Roxanne because of complaints that the defendant was making about her, correct?
I'm not sure about hiring an attorney. I was having issues with Roxanne and having custodial issues with my son. I wasn't going to hire an attorney because of Nikolas, no.
Did you ever make a statement different from that one?
I don't believe so. We were,
You believe so or you don't believe so?
don't believe so. We were,
Okay.
we were fighting about many matters, and, I was going to hire an attorney for custodial purposes, but that's about all I can recall.
Do you remember being asked the question, did you think, well, you were going to hire an attorney to go after Roxanne? What was that based on? I was just going to help Nikolas recover money, and whether there was any money or anything, I really don't have any idea. Question, well, were you going to hire an attorney to go after Roxanne? Well, I was going to do that just to help Nikolas. So, Mr. Gold, were you going to hire an attorney on behalf of Nikolas to go against Roxanne?
I was not actually going
Okay, there's an
to do
objection
that.
pending. Hold on one second. Let me speak to the lawyer.
So, Mr. Gold, you did hire an attorney to go after Roxanne to help the defendant, correct?
No, I did not hire an attorney to help go after
I
Roxanne.
didn't ask you if you did hire it. I said you were going to hire an attorney.
No, I was not going to hire an attorney to do that.
Did you say that in the deposition?
We may have spoken about doing that, but I had no intentions of actually doing that.
But you told us that in the deposition that you were going to do it.
That we were talking about it, but we were not going to actually do it, and we never did hire an attorney.
And the fact that you didn't hire it is because you didn't really have any facts anyway. It was all based on what the defendant told you, correct?
It was based on such loose materials. There was so much emotion going on at the time. There was so much confusion that a lot was going on. But no, I did not hire an attorney, and I didn't have I really wasn't going to do that.
That loose material was everything the defendant was telling you, correct? That was your only source of information, right?
Yes, he was, well, him and, other people as well.
Now, you came here to, one of the things you talked about was Linda's use of alcohol, correct?
That's right.
And it never occurred to you in 2008 to 2010, maybe 2011, that Linda was an alcoholic, did it?
It didn't, no.
Okay, and you're telling the jury now that you're looking back at it and you're realizing that she suffered from alcoholism, correct?
I've learned a lot more about alcoholism after that.
All right, and isn't it true that everything you learned about alcoholism was from Nikolas Cruz telling you that she was an alcoholic? Isn't that true?
No, it's not true.
Did you ever say that it was actually Nikolas who pointed out that his mother was an alcoholic?
Nikolas pointed out that his mother was an alcoholic, and that is correct.
And that's when you suddenly realized, oh, Linda Cruz was an alcoholic because Nikolas Cruz is telling me 10 years later from when I last saw her.
No, that is not the reason I realized that.
You didn't see her really since 2012, correct?
That's correct.
And so you're saying in 2022 that I remember now that she's an alcoholic after speaking with the defendant, correct?
No, that's not correct at all. I was actually speaking with Roxanne and speaking with other friends and looking at the whole situation. I've also had some dealings with people who were alcoholics, and I learned about alcoholism and the horrors that it brings to families. And it was from that I learned about what it means to be an alcoholic. And I'm looking back at what events happened, and I realized she was an alcoholic. I didn't realize it at the time.
Mr. Gold, isn't it true that you said you didn't realize she was an alcoholic? It was actually Nikolas who pointed out that his mother was an alcoholic? Did you say those words?
He pointed out that she had been drinking a lot. And then when I went through the drinking that she had done, every time I came in and I saw a drink, I realized, wow, she was in fact an alcoholic.
Did you know Finney Browd? Did you know Finney Browd?
I don't think so.
Did Linda ever share with you that she was taking the defendant to psychologists and psychiatrists?
She did.
Do you remember giving a statement different than that?
I don't think so. She was bringing him to counseling, I was told that he was going to a special school. I was told that he was getting help, so I would imagine that was with a counselor and with a psychologist.
Do you remember being asked the question on January 19th? Okay, and did Linda tell you that she had already taken Nikolas Cruz to psychologists and psychiatrists? Answer, no.
After I learned that she had been, that he was going to a special school, and that she had in fact been doing that.
Can you please answer the question?
Sure.
Did she tell you about psychiatrists and psychologists, and you're talking about schools? Is it true you said she did not tell me about psychiatrists and psychologists?
No, she didn't tell me directly, but from what I learned after, that he had been going to a special school.
From Linda Nikolas. Did Linda Nikolas ever tell you that she took him to psychiatrists and psychologists?
Oh, no, Linda did not, but I learned that she had been. She did not directly tell me that, no.
Can you please just answer the questions?
Sure.
Thank you. In fact, isn't it true that for years, or till the present, you were unaware of Henderson Mental Health and Camelot would provide therapy service to the defendant at the home? Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct?
Yeah.
And you were not aware of what mental health support that Linda Cruz gave to both of her children, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and you came in here earlier and said she should have gotten help earlier, correct?
That
You
is
said
correct.
that, right?
Yeah.
Same objection.
Did you say that?
Objection.
Overruled.
Did you? I'm
Hold
sorry.
on. There's no reason for anyone to raise their voice. Overruled.
You said that earlier today, didn't you? That she should have gotten help earlier, correct?
She should have gotten them help earlier, yes.
You don't know when she got them help, do you?
I was told that she didn't get help for some time.
Well, did you know that she was taking him to a psychiatrist when he was 3 years old? Did you know that?
I did not know that. no.
Okay, so you didn't know about Henderson Mental Health coming to the house for years, correct?
And I didn't know that they did that.
You didn't know about Camelot services coming to the house and giving therapy for a period of time as well, correct?
I knew there was some after a while.
Can you answer the question? Did you know that Camelot was coming to the house?
I
Yes or
didn't
no?
know who was coming to the house, but I did know that they were getting some type of help. I didn't know the name of, who was doing it or what services, but I did know that they were receiving some type of help.
Do you know the names of the psychiatrists who were taking care of him?
No,
Do you know the names of the psychologists who were taking care of him?
no,
Do you know the names of the ESE teachers that had him from kindergarten through high school? Do you
No,
know
but
any of them?
but I did know that he was receiving that help. I did know that he went to a special school and that he was receiving special help from the
From
ESE.
kindergarten on, correct?
I'm not sure exactly when he got the help, but I know he was getting help and he went to a special school.
But you came in and said she wasn't getting him help, but you really don't know what help she was giving him, do you?
Initially, when we moved in there, we were under the impression that they were not receiving any help.
Because isn't it true that she was a private person?
Extremely private.
So why do you think it's your business as a neighbor as to what mental health counseling? Relevance? They brought this up.
Okay. No speaking objections. Overruled.
Why do you think it's your business as a neighbor to know what mental health counseling Linda Cruz is getting for her children?
I didn't ask what type. I told her that she should seek some type of counseling. And I never asked her the names or anything else. I told her, it appears your son needs mental health help. And that's all I did. And anybody who was caring and saw this behavior from a child would say the same thing. It would be
I'm
ridiculous
going to
not to
object, Your Honor.
point.
He's not answering the
All
question.
right, sir, just ask the question that's asked of you, please.
The question is, what business is it of yours as to what mental health counseling the mother gives her son? Is it your business?
It was my business to point out that there appeared to be an issue. with
But
her
it wasn't
son.
your business as to what services he was getting,
The
right?
services, no, and I never asked about
And her
them.
financial status was not your business either, was it?
Well, it seemed to be my business when the house didn't have any food in the cupboards.
Okay, that was your business.
Well, when you see children going hungry and there's no food, I would say any decent person would try to help.
But yet, you said she was devoted to her children, didn't you?
She was, yes, it appeared to be.
She just would starve them to death.
They didn't seem to have food in the house, and she
Okay.
complained about finances.
In reference to both children being challenging, you thought Zach was the worst of the two children, correct?
I did.
And let me ask you something. You mentioned the loud noises that Nick would respond to, correct?
Yes.
Do you know if he had any problem with the loud noises when he shot 139 times inside the school?
All right, sustained, sustained.
Your Honor, it goes to whether or
Let me
not...
speak to the lawyers. Let me speak to the lawyers.
So, Mr. Gold, would you imagine that the sound of 139 AR-15 rounds inside a building is a pretty loud noise?
Absolutely.
What?
Absolutely.
Now, you've had conversations with the defendant while he's been in jail, correct?
He's called me a few times.
And you consider him to be a friend, don't you?
I would consider him to be somebody that was in my life for a short time, who I tried to give some assistance to and tried to help. I considered him a friend till the incident happened. Then I couldn't have stronger feelings of hatred and animosity and animus towards anybody. I don't think I've ever disliked anybody more. And as time went by, I just felt that he suffered from, mental illness, that no normal, rational human being
Your Honor,
could ever
objection.
do anything like this.
Could you direct him to answer only the questions and stop going into speeches?
Okay, all right, sir, please.
Sorry, I won't do it
Listen
again.
to the question. If you don't understand the question, you can ask, but otherwise you need to answer the question.
Sure.
Did you consider him a friend?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. So you didn't need to be dragged here with a subpoena. You were happy to come and testify as a friend, and you take his phone calls and talk to him, correct?
I wouldn't have come here if I wasn't under subpoena, no.
Well, you take his phone calls and talk to him, don't you?
I do, because I'm trying to understand the situation and understand why this happened.
When he speaks to you, does he seem coherent and logical?
He does.
Now, in your conversations with the defendant, did you ever offer to introduce the defendant to a friend of yours who is a famous movie producer?
I did.
And did you tell the defendant that this famous producer comes to your house all the time and that you will put the defendant on the phone with him?
No, I don't. I'm not sure if I said I would put him on the phone, but yes, I did tell him, one of my companies is a production company, and I think this is an important historical event.
Did you tell him that this famous producer did work with Stan Lee? Stan Lee's a legendary Marvel comic, Spider-Man co-creator.
I was working with Stanley.
Okay. So did you tell him that this famous movie producer did work with Stan Lee and that you knew him and worked for him?
No, I was the one that was working with Stanley.
What?
I was working with Stanley. The producer did not.
Did you tell him, he did a little work when I was working with Stanley?
Yes.
And did you tell the defendant that he's one of the famous producers? He has done Tom Hanks movies, he's done Brad Pitt movies, it's crazy. Did
Yes.
you tell that to the defendant?
I did.
And did you also tell him, this is on August 19th of last year, did you also tell him in the same conversation, later in that conversation, you know, talking about movies, I'm amazed someone hasn't approached you about making a movie.
Yes, I did say that.
And did you bring the subject back up on August 25th, 6 days later with him?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall saying his name is Lee Allison? He is a famous producer and actually made a couple of movies with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. He comes over the house all the time. I was the best man at his wedding, for God's sake. Yeah, he does movies all the time, and he is putting me in as an extra. I am kind of excited about that. He mentioned it. He's like, you should make a movie about Nikolas Cruz's life. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But it's a good message about communities not caring about people. Yeah, the only way I would do anything is if it would help people, you know. That's what I told him. Is that true? Is that what you told the defendant?
Those were not my exact words. No, I said that this should, you know, his event should be looked at, and it should be, people should learn from it, and some good has to happen.
Your Honor, at this time I move a self-ed.
There's the Da Vinci Code.
Oh yeah, with Tom Hanks. That was a good
Yeah.
one. You know, my one producer who works with me, his name is Lee Allison. He actually worked on that movie.
No way.
He's a famous producer, and we've like become really good friends.
Wow. Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, listen, next time, the video call, and he happens to be in my house, he comes over here all the time, I'll put you on with him. He's cool as shit.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, he did a little work when I was working with Stanley.
Yeah, you told me about Stanley.
Yeah, so he's the one. So he's one of the. He's like one of the famous producers. He's done Tom Hanks movies. He's done Brad Pitt movies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, talking about movies, I'm amazed somebody hasn't approached you about making a movie. My one buddy who works with me, his name is Lee Allison. He's a famous producer and actually made a couple of movies with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. He's very famous. Fuck, yeah, he comes over the house all the time. I was the best man at his wedding, for God's sake.
Wow.
Yeah. So he does movies all the time, and he's putting me in as an extra. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Wow.
He mentioned it. He's like, you should make a movie about Nikolas Cruz's life. And I was like, I don't know about that. I go, but it is a good message about communities not caring about people.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want that, to be honest with you. You know?
Yeah. The only way I would do anything is if it would help people, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I told him.
So, Mr. Gold, on 2 occasions you brought up Lee Allison being a famous producer, and you were trying to entice him to make a movie about his life, correct?
I said he should.
You did, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I honestly forgot that I had said that I would put him on.
So, because Zachary steals an iPad, you don't talk to him anymore, correct?
It wasn't just an iPad. It was a lot of events. It was all the shoplifting. It was, the bullying. It was also the fact that I had just finished telling him about being a better person and not stealing, and he had just 3 minutes later stolen an iPad from my vehicle.
And Linda defends him and puts up your ex at her house, and you're done with her then after that, correct?
Oh, done with who?
Linda.
Yes, I am.
But you're able to overlook a mass killing by the defendant and announce he is your friend.
I didn't.
Hold on 1 second, please. Grounds?
Relevance.
Overruled.
You're able to overlook that he killed 17 people and you're not ready to be done with him, right?
It was years before I spoke to him. I'm not sure how long it was before I spoke to him.
Who?
To Nikolas Cruz. I was so angry and just broken about the whole situation. It took me a long time to come to terms and find it in my heart to speak to him again.
Well, it was years and you still didn't come to terms with Linda Cruz, right?
I would have spoken to her again.
Okay. But you decide 10 years after you last saw her that she was an alcoholic.
Well, I said I didn't realize that she had been an alcoholic.
Okay. Isn't it true that your testimony about Linda Cruz and for the defendant is biased because you would still like to make a movie about Nikolas Cruz's life and make money, correct?
There's no bias. I'm just trying to get to the facts and understand how this situation could have possibly happened.
Do you agree it would be deplorable for a friend of the defendant to exploit these brutal murders by making a movie and making money over it? Do you understand
Any
that?
exploitation would be terrible.
What?
Any exploitation of this would be terrible.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay, Mr. Secor?
Mr. Gold, Mr. Marcus asked you a few times what business it was of yours regarding what was going on in the Cruz house. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
What were you concerned about when you lived next door?
They just didn't have enough food. They didn't seem to have enough money. We were just trying to help them. There was no business of ours other than just lending a hand.
Were you concerned about the well-being of Nick?
Both kids.
Do you know, after Linda died, do you know who was driving her car?
I do.
Who?
It was Roxanne.
And do you know if Roxanne had other stuff from Linda's house?
I don't know exactly what she had, but I believe that she had some of Linda's possessions.
You object, move to strike. He said he doesn't know.
Sustained.
When you were talking to Nick about the idea of a movie, was that because you were trying to make money?
No.
What did you think would be why did you think that might be a good reason? A good thing to do?
I think we have to understand more about what causes a school shooting and why somebody would ever imagine doing this, or even more so carrying something like this out. I think it's very important to understand that in order to, be a better society and be better people.
And I think you heard on the call that Nick after you brought that up, Nick said he didn't want to do it, is that right?
That's correct.
And, you know, Mr. Marcus was insinuating that you were trying to somehow benefit financially from this situation. Have you done anything since Nick committed these murders as a way to try to help society? Have you done anything with your own finances to try to help society?
I have.
Objection, irrelevant.
It's a directly responsible.
Okay, all right. Are you asking him with regard to this incident or in general?
Because of this incident, something that he did.
Okay, overruled.
You can answer.
Oh, okay. I felt that this shooting should never have happened, obviously. I felt...
Object has nothing to do with background character of the defendant.
Okay, if your question is whether or not he has taken any affirmative action in responding to this incident, then he can answer that, but he's not answering.
Have you contributed financially anything in response to this as a way to try to help society?
I have.
Okay, and what was that contribution to?
There is a movement called the Underground Railroad, which frees women from sex slavery, and I had vowed that I would save 17 people's lives to try to just help with, you know, this horror that has happened. And I had been in the right place at the right time, and I had donated a little bit of money to it, and it ended up that I think several hundred women lives had been saved. And I actually met one of the women, the first woman that had been saved from this organization.
So it was this organization, the Underground Railroad, that is rescuing these women?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the organization that you contributed to?
That's correct.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Gold.
Okay, thank you, sir. You're excused.